Okay, today we're going to talk about succulent propagation, and one of the first things that we're going to delve into here is seed propagation. So what I usually do is you can go out and harvest as much seed as you can in your garden or areas that you've got plants. And out in our garden area alongside the building here, we have some golden barrels. And golden barrels have a perfect flower. That means they have male and female parts to it. They're usually bloom in the summertime, and they're pollinated by bees or wasps or flies. And so usually they're pollinated in the summertime, and in the winter you can go ahead and harvest the seed. So I went out there this morning and pick some old seed pods off. This is the old part of the flower here. And then down inside of the ovary here was some seed down inside. So I don't know if Rick can get a good picture of those seeds down there, little black seeds. And actually, if you look on the paper here, there's some here on the paper, that's the size of them. They're about the size of a poppy seed. So what we usually do is we would break open these, clean them, make sure there's no debris in here. You wouldn't want to leave any of this pieces of flour on there. Clean it and get them as clean as you possibly can. You don't have to wash these or anything. They're nice and dry. And then we would get a seed flat like this, and we would put the soil down like you use in class, like we've used before, our regular mix. And then we would sow the seeds on the surface of the soil, and then we would top dress with sand. Now, this particular flat here, these were done last year. This was table 1, and these were sown on 4/10/2019. So this is what that seed flat looks like now. So, and then we've been doing this so long now that every year we produce hundreds and hundreds of golden barrels. And these should be probably separated out and potted up into individual pots and then grown on. Some of the golden barrels that we've grown over the years, have been doing this for 15 years, they are quite large by now. They grow a really nice size. So here's one that you could go to Home Depot and buy, but in a few years, growing it from seed, you could have some nice plants to put in the ground. Okay, so there's one thing that we've done with seed. And another plant that I really like, that's kind of expensive to get a hold of, this is an aloe. This is Aloe dorthea. And it turns this beautiful reddish color when it's stressed and in full sun. And these are the flowers that are here. And this flower is actually open right now. You can see the female part of it is the stigma that's sticking away out at the end. And inside here, you could possibly see the anthers that hold the pollen. Now, these are pollinated by hummingbirds and other insects, but mostly by hummingbirds. And what I usually do with these is these bloom in the spring, and then later on in the fall, there'll be lots of seed on these, and I'll just go ahead and collect the seed. And then again, we do the same thing. We sow the seeds in the flats, and then these are little Aloe dortheas that I grew. I think these were last year. Actually, these are 2 years old. These are sown on 9/23/2018. So instead of going out and buying something, because a plant like this would be at least $10, $12. Here, I've got a whole 6-pack, and they didn't cost me anything. It took a little bit of time to do, but this is the best way to go ahead and propagate these yourself. Now, and as they get older, a lot of these plants, there's little pups. These are a type that send offsets, and they pup out. And so down at the base here, you could actually, as those pups get larger and larger, you could remove those pups, and then you have free plants also. Okay, so there we saw golden barrels, we saw these aloes. Another thing that we grow a lot of here that I show the students is we grow Bocarnia recurvata. It's called the Ponytail Palm. And they can get at the base of the plant, and some of these you can see they have fat little bases here. At the base of these plants, when they get mature, they can be 10 feet across. So the one thing about this particular plant is that they're dioecious. That means that there's male and female plants. So you need to get two plants together. You need to get the male and the female together to produce seed. So luckily in our garden here we have a big male and then we have another female. And now we've planted a lot of these out on campus. So there's males and females that are fairly close to each other. These can be wind pollinated, they can be insect pollinated. They're usually insect pollinated usually by bees. So every year they send up these big stalks, and every year I go and collect a lot of the seed. So this bag is full of seed. These plants will produce thousands and thousands of seeds. So this particular one, you have to clean the seeds. You want to, I'll put it out on this piece of paper here. You want to, it has a little paper sheath around it, and you want to open up that paper sheath, and there's the seed right there. It's just a very, very small seed. So what we would do is we would hand these out to the students and say, okay, just pull all those seeds out. Now these seeds are a little bit larger, so when we would get our soil mix out in our trays, we would set them on the surface, and then we would either use our tamper and tamp them down, or you can push them down with your finger a little bit. Then we dress that with a silica sand. And here we see that we've got a really nice clump of them here that students did, and I think these are probably 2 years old. And actually, these are from last year. These were sown first day of class, April 2nd, 2019. It says Bocarnia recordata. So these are ready to be transplanted out into a little bit larger pots. So it only took a year, and they're already a nice size. All right. Another one that we can think about from growing from seed, this is a euphorbia, and it's a cute little plant. This is called Euphorbia Buplurifolia. All right, comes from South Africa. And again, we talk about plants that are different sexes. This is dioecious, so these are dioecious plants. So here, if we look at these flowers, those are the male flowers. And if you look at the end of the anthers there, you can see the pollen. Okay, those little yellow dots there are the pollen. So, and then if we look over on the female plant, you can see that it's totally different. So there's the stigma, at the style at the end is the stigmatic surface where the pollen can be dabbed onto. Now, you could do this in a number of ways. These were outside, and bees were probably going back and forth and putting pollen on there. One way you could do is I use a number 2 camel hair brush. It's very soft on the tip there. And then what you can do is you can actually go in and dab a little bit of that pollen on the end of the brush. It's probably pretty hard to see. And then you would come over to the flower, and then right on the tip, you would just brush it a little bit. Okay. Another way of doing this, one way I really like to do this to really make sure, I don't have my loops with me, but I have a pair of loops that I would use. But I actually go in and grab that anther and pull it off. Like so. Okay. And then I would bring it over and I would just dab right on top of the stigma. Sometimes I'll just leave it if it'll stick. It's not really going to stick. But I actually dabbed enough on there. Those pollen granulars are so small, it only takes a few. And actually a lot of these flowers look like they've already been pollinated. They're starting to swell up. Ovaries are starting to swell up. These are a chamber that has 3 seeds inside of them. So there's probably 3 ovules down inside there that pollen went down to pollinate. So, and these 2 particular plants that you see here, these are both seedlings that I have grown over the years. And when you're growing the seeds, you don't know which one is going to be male or female until they get old enough to flower, and then you can tell which one is which. All right? Okay. let's talk a little bit about books. There's a lot of books, but this is one of my favorites. It's called Succulent Propagation. It's by a couple Australian guys. If you can find this, I think you can get this on Amazon or at some of the bookstores. I bought this at one of the cactus and succulent shows, and it was only $15.95. But this is one of my favorite books. And it talks about seeds, it talks about all different types of things. One of the other things that I like to talk about is record keeping. And we talked about this in class before. This is my last year's journal. And whenever I'm sowing seeds, doing any type of propagation, I write it in here. The other thing is we always make sure that we write our tags so that we've got all that record in the tags. But it's always good to have, if you're doing any type of propagation, be it succulent, perennials, annuals, whatever. It's good to have a book that you enter all this stuff into. And then year after year, you can see and say, well, I had really good success doing it this way, so I'm going to follow that route. Okay? All right, so that's it for seeds for right now. But you can pollinate your own flowers, harvest your own seed, grow your own plants. And that's one of the best ways to go. As you guys know that when you would go out and look at your vegetables, it's always so exciting to see that, you come out one day and there's nothing there, and you come out the next day and all of a sudden there's little seedlings coming up. Okay, that's it for seed.